The hospital authority blames manpower shortage with maintenance contractors for falling concrete and medical equipment in public hospitals. Secretary for Development says public housing supply on the Fanling Golf Course site could be lower than planned. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Following a series of incidents involving falling medical equipment and concrete at public hospitals, the Hospital Authority's Investigation Committee unveiled its review report today. They found a manpower shortage with maintenance contractors could be to blame and plan to strengthen operations to improve the situation. Jacqueline reports.
At United Christian Hospital in February, a surgical light smashed into the operating table, hit an assistant anesthetist, and revealed a slew of maintenance oversights. In March, another mishap at Kwai Chung Hospital where falling concrete slabs injured a nurse. These are accidents that could have been prevented, a verdict from the Hospital Authority's Review Committee on Medical Equipment and Facility Maintenance.
Both our independent expert, Dr. Lim, and also the vendor themselves have a similar findings that on the whole, the maintenance work that has been performed has not been able to meet the standard.
After 3 months of inspection at public hospitals, the committee put forward a set of 23 recommendations. They include more frequent internal inspection of medical equipment to be performed according to the various risk levels of the facilities. Medical engineers should be present during inspections. Relevant manpower should be doubled. Maintenance staff should not be responsible for both inspection and procurement work at the same time as under the current arrangements. For sagging ceilings, apart from more frequent inspections, the committee suggested using more technology to monitor instead of just relying on contractors. They said the consultancy company the HA hired only has some 30 workers responsible for the maintenance work at all 42 public hospitals. Still, legal action will be taken against those responsible for any lapses.
In each hospital, we will ask the hospital chief executive to chair a hospital safety committee so that they can look into the various safety issues within the hospital locally. As obviously the colleagues there, working there every day, they know where are the areas that need most attention.
The safety committees at each hospital could also flag their concerns to the head office to coordinate review efforts across all hospitals on potential safety issues. The HA expects the mechanism will be in place within weeks. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Secretary for Development Bernadette Lin said today the government is not giving up on building public housing units on part of the land being used by the Fanling Golf Course. This after the government proposed to temporarily rezone the land in question from residential to undetermined. The Development Secretary admits the area will unlikely offer as many units as initially planned.
The government earlier decided to build 12,000 public housing units on 9 hectares of land on the Fanling Golf Course. But uncertainties arose after authorities recently proposed to temporarily rezone the area from residential to undetermined. Secretary for Development Bernadette Lin said today it remains the government's intention to build public housing there.
We have to respect the statutory processes. The condition is that we have to review the layout and the density of the public housing development to minimize the impact on the visual and the landscape in that area. And I hope that the community will accord the same standard in treating our handling of this case and other cases which also have to go through other statutory processes.
Lin, however, revealed the target of offering 12,000 public housing units might not be met. She added the 32 hectares of land on the Fanling Golf Course will still be returned to the government in September. The Leisure and Cultural Services Department will manage the site and consider opening that up to the public. Earlier, the Hung Yee Kuk suggested building public housing on 14 hectares of abandoned farmland near the golf course. Lin said it does not replace the original plan.
If there are circumstances warranting a change in our recommendation to the zoning, the government departments will do that professionally. So this is not the first time in which the government department proposes a refinement to the zoning before the proceeding of the public hearing.
She also said the area suggested by the Hung Yee-kuk has scattered property ownership and there is no road access for vehicles. Lin said it's still early for the government to express its stance towards the suggestion. The Labour Department recently launched a 3-tier heat stroke warning system to protect workers' health under hot weather conditions. Construction workers are intended to be one of the groups to benefit from the scheme, but the Hong Kong Construction Industry Employees General Union says the government guidelines are unclear. They hope the Labour Department will re-examine them soon. Veronica Lin reports.
According to the latest guidelines, when the amber heat stress at work warning is issued, workers performing moderate labor need to take a 15-minute break for every 45-minute work session. Those performing heavy workload have to rest for 45 minutes for every 15 minutes of work. Ho Bing-dak from a scaffolding union said, since the introduction of these guidelines, he has received dozens of inquiries from workers in both public and private construction sites. None of them, he said, fully follow the guidelines, especially scaffolding workers. He explained that given the tight building schedule, even if contractors or employers wanted to follow the guidelines, they wouldn't be able to follow through, as the penalties for delaying the project would easily pile up. Other union representatives criticized the Labour Department for issuing and cancelling the amber heat warning 3 times within a short period of time last Friday, making it very difficult for manual workers. Jiu Jin-kung, chairman of the Hong Kong Plumbing General Union, said temperatures inside the glass enclosure can reach 45 degrees Celsius or higher. Jiu said fans don't help much as the air is so warm. He described it as a giant steamer as heat emanates from the walls. Another union representative, Wang Ping, added that some workers carry on working despite the heat as they are worried about their earnings. Some union representatives said the actual temperatures at construction sites are much higher than the temperatures recorded by the observatory. They hope temperature monitoring will expand to cover more areas. Veronica Lin, TVB News.
Finland is going to expel 9 diplomats at the Russian embassy in Helsinki. The diplomats are accused of working on intelligence missions. The decision was made at a meeting between Finnish President Sauli Niinisto and the country's Ministerial Committee on Foreign and Security Policy. In a statement, the Finnish President's office said their actions are contrary to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. The Russian embassy in Helsinki has not commented on the expulsions. Nordic neighbours Norway and Sweden have also expelled Russian diplomats in recent months over claims they were intelligence officers, which Moscow denied. British Security Minister Tom Tugendhat said China had closed so-called police service stations at sites across the UK. He also said an investigation had not revealed any illegal activity by the Chinese state at these sites. Britain has previously said reports of undeclared police stations were extremely concerning. It said any intimidation on British soil of foreign nationals by China or other states was unacceptable. China has denied operating any such stations and issued a statement contesting Tugendhat's remarks via its embassy in London. The embassy said the accusations of running police posts in the UK were a complete political lie. Beijing has said there are centres outside China to help Chinese citizens renew documents and offer other services, and they are run by local volunteers, not Chinese police officers. Still to come on tonight's news. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie launches his bid for the 2024 presidential campaign. 2 killed and 5 injured in a shooting incident outside a Virginia high school graduation ceremony. And the MTR to increase penalties for misuse of the concession fare scheme for senior citizens. Welcome back to TVB News. Chris Christie, a former governor of New Jersey, launched his bid for the 2024 U.S. presidential campaign, saying he was the candidate in the GOP field willing to take on Donald Trump toe-to-toe. Former Vice President Mike Pence will launch his campaign later today in Iowa, while North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is also set to announce a bid for the White House. Matthew Bray reports.
Chris Christie is polling at 1% from Republican primary voters in the latest Reuters Ipsos poll, so he needs to get some support from somewhere. He began his bid at St. Anselm College in a town hall-style event that sounded rather low energy to begin with.
I've watched our country over the last decade. It seems to me get smaller and smaller. And smaller in every way. Smaller in the way we talk to each other. Smaller in the way we look at each other. Smaller in the things that we talk to each other about.
Very interesting.
Christie once backed Trump, but has since urged Republicans to disavow the former president's assertions about the 2020 election results. He is banking on trying to go after Trump and entice voters who are ready to move on, but it is far from clear this is a winning strategy.
And Donald Trump made us smaller by dividing us even further and pitting one group against another, different groups pitted against different groups every day.
Christie argues that unless top Republicans confront Trump, there will be a carbon copy of the 2016 primary, where Trump rolled over a host of alternatives who split the support of voters.
But Christie has insisted, as he's been considering whether to jump into the race, that he would not do this if he didn't think there was a way he could win. You know, he's pushed back on this idea that he sort of is going to be this kamikaze candidate. He's said, you know, I'm not a paid assassin.
The GOP field already has candidates stronger than Christie, notably Ron DeSantis and arguably Mike Pence. It will be an uphill struggle. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
In India, the death toll is expected to rise as rescue workers clear up after the train crash that killed 233 people and injured more than 900 over the weekend. The train collision occurred last Friday night in the eastern state of Odisha. The Howrah Superfast Express running from Bangalore to Howrah in West Bengal collided with a goods train, with coaches falling onto a nearby track. Another express train running from Kolkata to Chennai crashed into the derailed coaches. White body bags were seen scattered along the site of the crash, while rescue operations are still underway. Back in Hong Kong, a woman who allegedly killed her 3 daughters has been charged with 3 counts of murder. She is staying in Castle Peak Hospital and was absent from today's court hearing. The case was mentioned this morning at Kowloon City Magistrates Courts. The 29-year-old woman of Indian descent allegedly smothered her 3 daughters to death in Sham Shui Po on Monday. The prosecution said the defendant was unable to attend the court hearing because she is in hospital. Magistrate Peony Wong adjourned the case until next Monday. From the 25th of this month onwards, the MTR will increase the penalties for those who abuse the concession fare scheme. Secretary for Labour and Welfare Chris Sun said the Transport Department will conduct citywide actions with public transport operators to combat the abuse of the $2 scheme. The penalties for such acts on most MTR services have been raised from $500 to $1,000, while penalties for light rail and buses will increase from $290 to $370. The MTR will also strengthen ticket inspection. The Transport Department will set up a team to work with bus and ferry operators to combat the illegal acts. The Transport Chief reminds members of the public that it is an offence for an ineligible person to abuse the scheme, and once convicted, the offender may be liable to imprisonment. A step ahead in improving the well-being of care home residents today, the Legislative Council passed the 3rd reading to amend the relevant ordinances to increase the minimum space per resident and enhance the system of accountability of residence managers. The minimum living space per person is lifted from 6.5 square meters to 9.5 square meters. The minimum number of workers at the care home will be raised. The registration system for care home workers will be strengthened to improve the quality of these facilities. Some lawmakers are worried that the low salary for care home staff could worsen manpower shortage. Labour Chief Chris Sun said authorities have taken into considerations such concerns and postponed the mandated minimum staff number to 2026 at the earliest. Queen Mary Hospital is discussing with the hospital authority about the possibility of liver transplants from patients who die of cardiac arrest. Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau promoted the initiative in LegCo today, saying some 2,600 patients are awaiting organ transplants. Some lawmakers registered as a donor on site. Currently, the city only accepts transplants from patients who are brain dead. Places including the mainland, the US and South Korea allow patients who die of cardiac arrest to be donors. Some medical experts say authorities must educate the public before giving the green light to letting patients who die of cardiac arrest become a donor. That's the news. Thanks for watching.